So what is our responsibility then? To have that free will. The Prophet of God came to establish a system. Now you take that as system. We talked about tabligh yesterday. We talked about who is Hussain. Establish within yourself two qualities, and you see people automatically will come towards you. To become Sadiq and to become Amin. The first thing that you need to do is establish those qualities within you. If you want to spread Islam, Islam does not spread with a big beard and Nike shoes and socks all the way up to your knees, because you look like Father Christmas, essentially. It's like the Muslim version of Father Christmas without a mustache. See, we don't want to look like Father Christmas. It's good to sometimes, but it's only good on the 25th of December to look like Father Christmas. What is Islam saying? Islam is saying your character, right? Be truthful, people will come. See, they say the key to vices is lying, right? So become truthful. Become somebody who's Amin. And then you see everything flows from there. So what's the first thing we need to do to become that? Now look at the Prophet of God. 40 years ago, 3 years he's in taqiyya. After 3 years, at the age of 43, he comes out. He comes next to Abu Qubais. He says to the people, he says, oh people, come, I want to talk to you. When all of those people come, the Prophet of God then says, he says, do you trust me? They said, Muhammad, we trust you. He says that if I was to tell you that behind this mountain there is an army, would you believe me? Everyone turned around and said, we would believe you. And what about if you went behind the mountain and you saw that there was no army? Muhammad would say, we're blind, but we'd believe you. When he took the people to that level, at that moment he said, then believe this, that there is no God but Allah, and I, Muhammad, am his messenger. And at that point the people then said, what? He says, we want to believe you, right? But it's our pockets that stop us from believing you. It's the nafs, right? It's the nafs and our move towards materialism that stops the Imam from coming back. So let me ask you a question. What difference are you making then? Become that person who becomes a need within your society. Sayyid al-Shuhada is a movement. Market him. Why? Because Sayyid al-Shuhada represents moderation. In a world of fundamentalism, that on one hand you have secular fundamentalism, and on the other hand you have religious fundamentalism. When Islam is tarnished today with fundamentalism, it will take the daughters of Ali and Zahra to stand up and to say, this is not Islam. Islam of the Khawarij is not Islam. Islam of what we're seeing today is not Islam. Islam is not Islam of Yazid. Islam is the Islam of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And Sayyid al-Shuhada means moderation. Who is Hussain? Hussain is that person. Hussain is that person who gave his life against oppression. Hussain is that person who would not even kill an animal unjustly. Look and see within the tradition. Hur's army is thirsty. Imam says, feed your animals as well, because I can't see animals thirsty. That is who Hussain is. That's who Sayyid al-Shuhada is. Don't take him as a small person. He's a person of humanity. He didn't differentiate. He didn't say that's a Christian horse or that's a Jewish horse, or that's a Hindu horse or that's a Muslim. He says horses, animals. He says people. This is why Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nas. He addresses the people. Bring out that common humanity. Bring it out. Living in the West, what's the message for us people? We need to open up our mosques. We need to open up our centers so that non-Muslims come and see the message of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You know, I remember when Obama says, he talks about Malcolm X, right? He talks about Gandhi. He talks about all of these movements. When you ask Malcolm X, who was your inspiration? Malcolm X says Gandhi. The whole world knows Gandhi today. But when Gandhi was asked, who was your inspiration? He said, Hussain ibn Ali was my inspiration. What does that tell you? That tells you in India they knew. The Western world doesn't know. Take Hussain, take him out. Spread Hussain. You know, I remember a friend of mine, when he went to see Rajiv Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India in the 80s. He says, when I went into his drawing room, into his private drawing room, I was baffled by the fact that there was a 2-meter letter on his wall. And when I asked him what that was, I looked deeply, the letter was this. It was Amir al-Mu'mineen writing to Malik al-Ashtar. He says to Rajiv Gandhi, he says, look, why have you put this in your drawing room? He says, because this is private to me. When I wake up in the morning, I read this. It's as if Ali is speaking to me how to govern. In that letter, what does Amir al-Mu'mineen say? The very famous quotation, right? He says that either a person is your brother within humanity or they're your brother within religion, right? Or they're equals, they're a brother within religions or equals within humanity. He's teaching Malik al-Ashtar how to govern. And we need an entire lecture just on the letter. Rajiv Gandhi says, when I read this, it was as if Ali was talking to me. So this is why I keep this private, that I read this every day, then I go out to the people. What are these words then? These words are timeless. Rajiv Gandhi is not a Muslim. It hits his heart because the sayings of the Ahlul Bayt hit our heart. So when the Ahlul Bayt say, when you come into the West, it becomes incumbent upon you to spread the religion, not by the tongue, by your character. People don't have time to read the Quran. It's like what Ayatollah Hussain Amali once said, when he was doing a tafsir of this verse, right? Which was Surah Waqi'ah, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ لَا يَمَسَّهُ إِلَّا الْمُطَهَّرُونَ. He says, become like the Quran. He says, make sure that you're tahir, that you touch the Quran, you're tahir. So what does he say? He says, become like the Quran, become like a walking, talking Quran. People don't have time to read it. When they see your akhlaq, they're inspired then to read the Quran. In the same way, when people see Sayyid al-Shuhada, they're inspired to come towards the message of Karbala. So what's the difference? That's what marks the difference. When the people of Sham see the daughters of Rasulullah, they're inspired by their honors to come towards the path of Islam. Why was there a revolution? Within 40 days within Sham, Yazid had to let Sayyidah Zainab go because she created a revolution that stirred the hearts. What was it that stirred hearts? It was the akhlaq of Sayyidah Zainab that stirred hearts. So what's important for us? As Muslims, market Sayyid al-Shuhada. They say in this West, your akhlaq. Second thing, one saying of Sayyid al-Shuhada is enough to move the hearts of the people. And I say to a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses who are my friends, I say to them, when you go to doors and you knock and you give them this much amount of literature, when you give me that literature, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to put it in the green recycling box because it's too much for me to read. I said, take a message from us. Sayyid al-Shuhada, when he speaks and when the Aimma speak, one message so that people can digest. Go to Nahj al-Balagha, right? Take one saying and give it to someone. They ponder over it. Give them the whole book, they don't read it. Why? Because people don't understand the value. Just give them one saying. And I've seen in practical life, when you give them one saying, people then come towards Islam. I'm going to give you one more story and then Nasalakum ad-du'a. I remember speaking to a professor once in Tuxes University. He was a very famous professor. And I said to him, how did you become a Shia? He says, you're an atheist. You're a philosopher. What inspired you to become a Shia? He says, listen. He says, one day I was sitting in the library. And when I was sitting in the library, my heart was turning. I felt depressed. He says, so whenever I felt depressed, I went towards reading. It's like what the Imam alayhi salam says, Amir al-Mu'minin Nahj al-Balagha. He says, two types of people, their thirst never quenches. The person going out for money, you find that he works 22 hours and still he wants more money. He has half an hour to sleep and he's still pounding away. And the second person, the thirst for knowledge, never quenches. Look at Allama Tabatabai. All night he would write Tasjil Mizan. So he inspires you. Knowledge, you don't want to sleep. So this professor says, he says, I went and my heart was turning. I wanted to read a book. He says, I went into the library and I pulled out a book without looking at it. When I opened the book, it was as if it was the word of God. It's like God was speaking to me. Philosophy was there. All the various branches, cosmology, ontology, epistemology, says everything was there. But you know what? Every time I thought this is the kalam of Allah, it said, praise be to that Lord. Praise be to that Lord. Praise be to that Lord. I was thinking, who is this guy praising? He says, when I closed the book and I looked at the first page of the cover, it said, Nahj al-Balagha Ali ibn Abi Talib. These words of the Imam are powerful. Take one verse of the Imams and spread them.